ritual that when combined created an elixir of eternal life. There was only one problem. The primary ingredient of this elixir was the blood of a 21-year-old virgin. Now, in those days, in that place, women were free. They did what they wanted, and most of them had explored life and love long before 21, so there just weren't any women of that age to be found. And so the sorcerer put his mind to other projects, other ways to get women to do what he wanted, in hopes that someday he would get this elusive ingredient, and he had some success with poppies. Yes! He made hybrids, grew hybrids that simulated the taste and smell of common household herb. He had particular luck with a rosemary bush, and since rosemary is both culinary and medicinal, he had no problems getting it into the local shops. A couple of doses of his herb and he'd be hooked, back for more. And soon, he was rolling in wealth. And one of his victims was a young woman, a singer of songs. And she had been exploring life and love enough to have created a new life to love. In her pregnancy, she was dealing with some extreme cravings. Not knowing about the machinations of the sorcerer, she mixed a little of his herb with her food and found herself with a habit she could not afford on a singer's salary. So again, later on, she finds herself sitting alone at a table, going through the agonies of withdrawal, and she smells the scent of that herb she so desires, and looking out the window, she sees it down in the garden below, in the neighbor's garden, in the corner, a beautiful silvery blue rosemary bush. And even though she'd heard the rumors of the man next door being some kind of pervert, she snuck into the garden and broke off a sprig. Well, there's no sneaking into a sorcerer's garden. He stepped out of the shadows before she could reach the gate. "You dare steal from me?" she said. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm pregnant. I couldn't help myself." And he realized this was his opportunity. "Pregnant? Oh, take all the herb you want, but promise me your daughter. Your child, if it's born a girl, apprentice her to me when she's of an appropriate age, and I promise you, I will protect her reputation. Keep her safe, and when she's 21, she'll have a skill." And the woman, thinking she was fortunate, promised her unborn child to the sorcerer and left with a large basket of rosemary. Well, the child was born. It was a girl, and they named her Rosemary after her mother's hook. Little Rosemary sang. At first, she cooed the croonings her mom sang at her cradle. And then later on, she mimicked her mom backstage as her mother performed. And then she began to sing any song she heard, just first hearing, pluck it out of the air like magic. After that, she began weaving together her own notes and words in ways that created melodies that mesmerized her listeners. And then she turned 12. Started school. Little Rosemary, singing her way home from school, would have to walk past the sorcerer's house. And he would call out the window, "Rosemary, remind your mother of her promise." And little Rosemary, she would go and tell her mom, "Mama, the man next door says, remember your promise." Her mother would say, "Oh, ignore him," because she didn't want to lose her daughter. But that meant every day, as Rosemary sang her way home from school, and the sorcerer would just call out, "Rosemary!" And her mom would say, "Just ignore him." Until one day she didn't. I don't know why. Might have needed a fix. She might have been scared. But that day she said, "Tell him, just take it." And so the next day, as Rosemary sang her way home from school, and the sorcerer called out, "Rosemary!" Rosemary said, "Just take it." And he reached out the window and he grabbed the little girl and he pulled her and he locked her up in the attic and he never let her out. But Rosemary sang. She sang every song she'd ever sung. And then she made up new songs to sing. And the sorcerer began to notice that out in front of his house, the people, they gathered around listening to Rosemary sing, and he didn't care. Because he liked it too. Until she turned 14. And then he began to notice that the people standing out around the house, they were mostly young men, and that made him nervous because he really wanted to live forever. So he conjured a tower far out in the wilderness where no one ever went. It was 70 feet tall, a window way at the top, only way in or out. And he put Rosemary up into that tower and he spelled her hair. It was thick and strong and long, and he braided it into a rope. And Rosemary, she would sit at the edge of the window with her long hair, and when he would call, "Rosemary, Rosemary, let down your long hair," she would drop that braid, and the sorcerer would climb up and he would spend his day at his sorcerer's workbench. Listening to Rosemary sing, he had her all to himself. Until she got a little older and the sorcerer began to notice that he was having a difficult time. Between his personal... He knew he couldn't spend so much time alone with Rosemary, and so he came once a day, usually just in the morning. He would come, he would call, he would give her the things that she needed, and then he would head on home. And that, of course, is when the hunter came by. He was, a young man out in the wilderness looking for some great beast, and he hears the singing in the wind, and he follows it back, comes in sight of the tower just as the sorcerer comes by, hears him call, climb, come down, leave, and he thinks, "I'd like to try that." So he goes on up to the tower and he calls out, "Rosemary, Rosemary, let down your sweet hair." And Rosemary drops down the braid, thinking it's just the sorcerer coming back for some reason. Wasn't she surprised to see a young man at her window? Well, she was afraid, but he reassured her, "I heard you singing. It was so beautiful, almost as beautiful as you."
Right? Fucking ice and spice, bro.
Flattery works if you're a young man in a young woman's window. She let him stay. And when he left, she didn't think she needed to tell the sorcerer about that, so he came back. And they became friends, and maybe more than friends, because he began talking about going to other places, other worlds where there were not sorcerers and towers. And the hunter said, "Rosemary, how can you get down?" And Rosemary said, "That's the easy part." And she cut off the braid, hung it by the hook, by the window. She said 1 minute, and she went over to the sorcerer's workbench, and she took out 3 small nuts, about the size of acorns. And on each of those nuts was carved the face of an animal. The first had the face of a dog. The second one was the face of a lion. And the third was the face of a wolf. And she put those 3 nuts into the pouch on her belt. She climbed down the braid, and the 2 rode off. But there's no sneaking out of a sorcerer's tower. He actually knew the moment she cut off that braid. He came as quick as he could, but by then she was gone. Nothing left but the braid. So he climbed up, went over to his workbench, took out his magic eye and his 7-league boots. And looking out into the wilderness, he spotted the two. But on the 7-league boots, there were 7 leagues to every stride. The sorcerer was soon catching up. But Rosemary saw them coming. And she reached into her pocket and she pulled out that first nut, the nut with the face of the dog. And she tossed it over her shoulder, and when it hit the ground, up sprang a huge bull mastiff with huge jowls and sharp teeth, and it was growling and fierce and frightened the sorcerer. He conjured up a flock of birds, which he sent flying at the dog. And as the dog snapped at the birds, the sorcerer stepped around, and with those 7-league boots, he was soon catching up. And Rosemary saw him coming, and she took out the second nut, tossed it over her shoulder. Up sprang the huge lion. But now the sorcerer knew what was the plan, and he had his own spell. He conjured up a donkey, which he threw right into the lion's open mouth, tearing off its skin at the same time. So while the lion was dealing with the carcass of the donkey, the sorcerer wrapped the skin around himself. And off to the side and up ahead with those 7-league boots, he was catching up again. And Rosemary saw him coming, and she took out the third nut. And as that sorcerer was about to pounce, she cast down that nut. Up sprang that wolf. It swallowed that sorcerer, donkey skin and all. And he didn't get to live forever. But Rosemary sang happily ever after. Well, that was fun.
That was well timed.
Do it again? Well, you know, I actually have a poem that works really well from this stage. It's not really for kids, but if you don't mind, then I won't worry about it too much. There are 5 words I don't normally say in the presence of children, but if your parents don't object, we're gonna do this anyway. Because this is Shel Silverstein's The Smoke Off. Laid-back California town of sunny San Rafael lived a girl named Pearly Sweetcakes. Hey, you probably knew her well. She'd been high 15 of her 18 years, and the story was widely told how she could smoke 'em faster than anyone could roll. Her legend finally reached New York, that Grove Street walk-up flat where dwelt the Calistoga Kid. A beatnik from the past. Now, he'd been rolling joints since time began, and he takes a cultured toke and says, Jim, I can roll them faster than any chick can smoke. So a note gets sent to San Rafael for the championship of the world. The kid demands a smoke-off. Well, bring him on, says Pearl. I'll grind his fingers off his hands. He'll roll until he drops, says Calistoga. I'll smoke that chick till she blows up and pops. So they rent out Yankee Stadium, and the word is quickly spread. Come one, come all, who walk or crawl. Tickets just 2 lids ahead. And across every town and county, across land and sea they speed. The world's greatest doper with the world's greatest weeds. Hashishers from Morocco, hemp smokers from Peru, and the Shasniks from the Banga who smoke that deadly Poo-Guru, and those who call it light of life, and those who call it boo. See the narcos and the dealers. See the dealers and their ladies dressed in turquoise lace and leather. And see the narcos and the closet smokers puffing all together. From the teenies who smoke legal to the ones who've done some time. To the old man who smoked reefer back before it was a crime. And in the age-old house that Ruth built now, it's filled with the smokes and cries of 50,000 screaming heads all stoned out of their minds. And they play the national anthem. And the crowd lets out a roar as the spotlight strikes the kid in pearl, ready for their smoking war.
I don't really hear myself
At a table piled high with grass as high as a mountain peak.
Dissociation powers, man.
Just
Great
tops
job.
and buds of the rarest flowers. Not one stem, branch, or seed. I mean, Maui, Wowie, Panama Red. Acapulco Gold. Chief from East Afghanistan in that rare Alaskan cold. This sticks from Thailand, Genya from the island, Bangkok's blooming best, and some of that wet imported shit that capsized off Key West. Oxen tops and Kenya buns and Riviera floors and that rare Manhattan silver that grows down in the New York sewer. And this bubbling ice-cold lemonade, sweet grapes by the bunches, Hershey bars and Oreos in case anyone gets the munchies. And the Calistoga kitty smiles. Pearly, she just grins. As the drums roll low and the crowd yells, go, 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 and the world's first smoke-off begins. Well, the kid, he snaps his fingers once and zap, that first joint rolled. Pearl takes a hit for their famous lungs and the roach is cold. So the kid, he rolls his super bomb that would paralyze a moose, and Pearl just takes one mighty hit and bombs the fuse. So the kitty rolls 3 in just 10 seconds. She rolls, smokes them up in 9. Everyone sits back and says, this might just take some time. See the blur of flying fingers. See the red coals burning bright as the night turns into morning. And the morning fades to night. And the autumn turns to summer. And the whole damn year is gone. Well, the two still sit on a roach-filled stage, rolling and smoking on. With trembling hands, he rolls his joints with fingers blue and stiff. She coughs and stares with bloodshot gaze and puffs through blistered lips, and as she reaches out her hand for another stick of gold, the kid, he gasps. Damn it, bitch! There's nothing left to roll! Nothing left to roll, screams Pearl. Is this some twisted joke? I didn't come here to fuck around. I came here to smoke. And she reaches across the table, and she grabs his bony sleeves, and she crumbles his body between her hands like dry and brittle leaves, flicking out his teeth and bones like useless stems and seeds. And she rolls him in a zigzag and lights him like a roach. And the fastest man with the fastest hands goes up in a puff of smoke. In that laid-back California town of sunny San Rafael lived a girl named Pearly Sweetcakes. You probably knew her well. She'd been stoned 25 of her 28 years, and the story was still widely told how she could still smoke them faster than any dude could roll. Meanwhile, in New York City, on a street that has no name, there's the hands of the Calistoga Kid in the Viper Hall of Fame, and underneath his fingers there's a little golden scroll that says, beware of being the roller when there's nothing left to roll. Sal Silverstein, the smoke pop. You guys have a great time here at Freedom Field. Check out the lemonade. I heard it's really good. Gluten-free and Kentucky green. Some really wonderful vendors here.
Fucking like shoulders like puffed out to the max, and there's gonna be tiny little arms. Be like pop
There we
in
go.
the shoulders, you know. It's gonna be unproportioned, but it's gonna be straight power.
And thanks for having me up here. This was fun.